Good evening everyone, Richard Rankin here and welcome to tonight's exhibit. Thank you all so much for coming to this virtual exhibit. That sounds ridiculous, but is the world in which we live at the moment. I'd like to present to you all the long overdue Copper and Teal collection. As you've probably realised, I don't like to spend a lot of time on names and titles of things. I like to let the work speak for itself. I could have come up with something more metaphorical. I could have come up with something that you had to interpret and really search for the meaning of, but I didn't. So, but it does actually have a sort of a deeper meaning. Copper and teal is quite a prevalent palette through my work. There is a theme of copper and teal which runs through my work, and in particular this collection. So when I was coming up with a name, I did spend a good 5-10 minutes trying to come up with a title for it. That just kind of hit me as something quite appropriate for this series in particular, so there we have it. So this exhibit is essentially an exhibit of the path I've taken as a photographer and the time I would consider myself to have been a photographer. We've got old stuff and we've got new stuff. We've got stuff that I've been sitting on going back to the point, and I remember it very clearly, that I decided I wanted to pursue the craft of photography. Not just take photos, but actually get involved in what it means to be a photographer. And I remember the very moment that I came, the very moment I kind of made that decision, and I also remember the very moment I went in and bought my first full frame camera. So some of the images that you see go as far back as that, several years ago. One of them in particular, which was entitled Desert Oasis, is a good example of that. So that goes back to the kind of beginning. I say the beginning of my kind of photographic career because I've been interested in photos maybe for about 10 years. I've been doing photography for about 10 years or so, but it's only in the last few years that I've really decided to pursue it. And it's only within that time frame that I would consider any of the work that I've done to be viable as prints to send out to you guys and to put out there as artwork. So I suppose it spans that. It spans that little bracket of time from then until now. If you really wanted a reason as to why this collection was called Copper and Teal, then look no further than this image. It's quite prevalent throughout the shot. This was shot on the Pacific Coast Highway, and it was an obvious shot for me. It was immediately striking. I mean, look at it. There's not a huge edit on this either. You've got the island in the background, the cows coming from the background up to the foreground, the light, that gradient in the sky, it was all there. It's one of my favourite shots. I absolutely love it. It's a big print. It's at least 30 by 20, and the trial version, interestingly, the trial proof for this shot was done on metallic paper, which lends a huge depth to the shot. Actually, it's lovely. Desert Oasis. This shot actually almost passed me by, as a lot of my photos do, until I actually look at them or go back and look at them again. I liked it. It was nice. The light was nice. The composition was nice. But it wasn't until I actually stopped to look at this shot that I realised how much there is in it, how beautiful the shot actually is. And because when you stop to look at it, there's really a lot to appreciate about it. And I mean, that's what makes a good photo, right? Something that makes you stop and look and think, and you're discovering more and more about the scene the more you look at it. Desert Oasis does that. Does it for many reasons. There's a nice sort of reflection in the land of the water. The shape's almost the same, which is the thing that really drew me into it, I suppose, in the first place. But there was also an incredible amount of detail in this shot that I hadn't noticed at first. When I actually looked at it, I thought, this is a really incredibly detailed shot. It's beautiful, I love it. And the colour throughout the scene is, I mean, you might disagree, but there are colours in that I don't think I have a lot of examples of. And yeah, it's an old school shot. Desert Oasis. It's one of my originals, and I've been sitting on it for quite a while, and there's not a lot of edit done to it. There's not a lot of colour balancing or anything to it. It's quite a natural shot as is, and yeah, a kind of a what will hopefully one day make it into the classics list. So that's Desert Oasis. Glencoe. So this is my largest print to date. It's huge. It's 40 inches wide by at least 24 inches high. It's a huge print. It's a print that I'm very proud of, actually. It looks like Scotland. It's a print that looks like Scotland. And I find that being from here, you have to find something new, something original, something unique about what you're shooting. I mean, that's kind of photography anyway, but I think it's even harder when you're so familiar with a place. And Glencoe is somewhere that I visit frequently. And I think to capture the essence of the place where you're from is a tricky thing to do, because you have such a very specific idea of it. You have a picture of it. You have an idea of the colours of it. And I suppose that's what I love so much about this print, and the reason why I'm so proud of it is it looks to me how I imagine Scotland to be. That's Glencoe. It's a timeless shot. It could belong literally in any time. And another one of the things that I really, really love about it is having had caught the fact that it's raining, the motion of the rain through the shot. Does something with the texture of the image as a whole. It lends a sort of a kind of painterly effect to it and increases the depth through the shot right into the background mountains. And I think, again, because of its size, because it's such a large print, it just kind of looks like a big sort of centrepiece painting. Lakes. One of the common things about this collection is big landscape, and this is a big landscape shot. It's at least 36 inches wide by, I think, 24. So it's a big print. I think it has to be. I think it's all the better for that, so you can really appreciate the detail in the shot. It was taken in the Lake District National Park, and it's actually taken at night time. It looks kind of dusk, but it was much darker than that. So it's a long exposure shot. Put the tripod on the pier and just snapped kind of half a dozen shots or so. And it's just kind of got everything going for it that I love in a shot. It's got that leading line of the pier, which takes you nicely into the depth of the shot. You've got the colours of the hillside which remain, which is a tricky thing to do after dusk. Still got that nice vibrant green. And obviously you've got the sunset behind the hills in the distance. And the long exposure lends a really nice effect to the water itself. It's got a really nice kind of glass reflective effect. Beautiful piece to look at. So that's Lakes. RR Crossing. So this is a shot that I've been sitting on for a little while, and again is one that I just kept coming back to. There's something that I really love about it. It was shot in the Mojave Desert on my way back from Joshua Tree to Los Angeles, and there was something. There was something quite cinematic about it. It felt like something from a film. So I had to jump out the car and take this shot. It's just this railroad line, which in the shot makes for a really great leading line up to it's the Rockies. It'll be the Rocky Mountains in the distance, and this railroad crossing, this RR crossing, which I thought, who is that crossing for? Who's crossing the road here? No one. I can't see a single person in sight. But apart from that, what I really love about the shot is it's got a lot of colours that I really, really like. It's got that kind of teal blue sky, and the way the clouds are sitting in it, it's like they're placed. They don't quite look real, and it lends a sort of cartoonish effect to the print. Not to say that the print is cartoonish, but it just gives that sort of effect that it feels not quite real to me. But it is, and again, it was one of these shots that you don't appreciate it fully until you just really properly look at it, and you find a lot of details in that shot that you might not notice at first glance, like the horizon, for example. The mountains in the background are really highly detailed and just really complete the story of the shot as a whole. So That's RR Crossing. Ford Belter. One day, if I'm asked to have a list of classics, this would be on it. It was shot in San Francisco on Church Street, I believe, not far from Dolores Park. And it just immediately, coming up onto the crest of the hill with that classic Ford truck sitting there, just immediately had a great sense of depth to it between the truck and the background. And also the colours throughout the scene just instantly created a very classic vintage feel for me. So I've always seen it in that sort of light. So that was the kind of direction that I went with it. I've got a lot of love for it. It's a 24x16 classic print. That's Ford Belter. Untinted. I have a very, very love-hate relationship with this shot. Mainly because I love it so much. I really, really love this shot, and I've always thought that it had potential to be something. And I always had an idea of what I wanted to do with the shot and the story that I wanted to tell in it. But I just never really felt like I was getting it right. So for that reason, Untinted, which it's just recently been coined, has been through 22 iterations. This is its 21st version. And there has been many proofs. Many times it has sat atop my kitchen table and I've been, I don't want to say unhappy, but just thought it's not quite what I want. You know, the images were good, just I was missing something. But ultimately what I wanted was these panes of glass to be more like flats, like they existed maybe in a slightly different reality, an image upon an image, if you like. So when you're looking through them, is that the reality of New York, or is that the person's idea of it as they look through it? Or are they just painted flats put up against a background? Because if you look closely, there's a wee shadow behind them. Again, it's kind of open to interpretation, but it's a shot which I have a relationship with. So that's Untinted. Hotel. I might retitle this before it's launched, but at the moment it's Hotel. It's kind of a Kubrick shot. It reminds me of The Shining. I remember standing in the corridor taking that shot and thinking that very thing. There's something just slightly removed about it. It's like it belongs in a different time. It was taken at the Planet Hollywood Hotel in Las Vegas, and it's been with me for a little while. I kept going back to it again and again and again and again and again, and I kept playing with it time and time and time again, knowing that there was just something that just kept drawing me to it, which is actually a big thing, and I'll tell you why. Because when you're taking many hundreds of photographs, sometimes thousands, you kind of get buried in them. So when you're going back to a particular image, there's obviously really something in that shot for you, and there was for this one. It's quite a small shot. It's only 16 by 16 inches. But the interesting thing is the trial proof version of this shot is probably my favourite, but I'm not sure that it really makes for a kind of a mainstream sort of a print. I've done this sort of shifting effect on the trial proof of this shot that I really like. Gives a weird sort of 3D depth to it. But the reason why I didn't go with the trial proof in the end, why I didn't go with that version in the end, is because it wasn't the thing that attracted me to it in the first place. It wasn't the shot that I saw when I stood in the corridor of that hotel that day and pressed the shutter button. So I thought I need to remain true to the shot and not what I want to do in the edit. So that's Hotel. So there we are, that's the Copper and Teal collection. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks for coming along to the virtual exhibit. Maybe next time we'll do it in person. I want to say a huge thank you again to everyone who supported me. It means a lot. It means probably more than you know, and really, really does keep me going. I want to say a special thank you to Maureen at RR Photo. Without her I probably wouldn't have got this out, because I'm not the most organised of people, and she just pushes me to get things done. So again, thank you, and I'll see you all at the after party on Instagram Live. See you there. Hi, I'm Richard Rankin, and I can't remember what I'm supposed to say. Hi. Start again. Hi. Good God, give me strength. No, let's do another one. She went sounding like such a fucking dick. I don't know what it's called. Ginger cows. Ginger cows. That's a lot of shit. I don't know what I'm saying. Blah. National blah. Blah blah blah. On the and the blah blah. Definitely had more than one or two wines. Shite. Is that a thing you say? Oh, thank you everyone, all of you who have supported me through this. No, start again. Not what I'm saying, I know what I'm saying without the ums. Can we delete and go again?